I know it's Christmas, but can the Archbishop of York really stay in his role? Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Rev Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England. On this channel you get all my views as a parish priest on all the Christian news happening in the world today. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below, share it, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. Also head over to my Substack and check out extra content over there. So the Archbishop of York is now under more pressure to resign his role over his handling of former priest David Tudor and how he was allowed to stay in certain positions, well, one as a parish priest, let alone as an area dean, which we're going to hear about. But more information has now come out. I covered this in a video before, which you can watch here, but one of the questions I had as an area dean, how was he allowed to stay in those posts? I didn't understand the policies that they had in Chelmsford. In the diocese I'm in, you are area dean for a set amount of time, and if you're going to stay on, you renew your post, as it were. But I didn't know if Chelmsford operated differently because he's area dean for such a long time, whether if you're area dean you stay there until you step down. But that isn't the case, as we found out. So the petition that is being put up has now reached, at the time of recording, 34,691 signatures, and more people are actually adding today because of this news coming out. And it's coming out of the BBC again because they've continued their investigation. There were, like I said, a few loose ends, and they have a headline of Archbishop of York regrets that abuse scandal priest had a role renewed twice. And this is the big thing. He had his area dean role renewed twice, and this could be the tipping point, to be honest, because it's such a big, it is really a big thing. So they say a Church of England priest at the centre of a sexual abuse case was twice reappointed to a senior role in his diocese during the Archbishop of York's time as Bishop of Chelmsford, the BBC can reveal. And so the role of area dean, so what you have in the church, you have your parishes, and then your benefices, and an incumbent can be incumbent of a parish or a benefice, which is a group of parishes, and then within that you get these things called deaneries, which are those groups of parishes or benefices put in an area, and they can be quite big, or could have a few churches in. But in those benefices you get something called an area dean, sometimes called rural deans, who are then like a step up to help out with certain things like vacancies or problems, or you go to speak to them about this and that, and they are chair of the deanery synod for the clergy, and you have a laity chair for the laity. So it is an important role, and it's a role that's appointed by the bishop. You, as far as I know, you don't apply for it, you're asked to go for it by the bishop, which adds a lot to the story. And so this David Tudor, as we will hear, was already in that post when Stephen Cottrell came in as Bishop of Chelmsford, but it's what happened after. So they say a BBC investigation previously revealed how David Tudor remained in post 9 years after Stephen Cottrell was first told about concerns about him. New information shows Tudor's contract as area dean in Essex was renewed in 2013 and 2018, at which times Mr. Cottrell knew he had paid compensation to a woman who says she was abused by him as a child. So this David Tudor had abused children, and he made one payout, as we'll hear in this article, of £10,000 to a woman who was abused as a child, I believe, aged 11. So the Archbishop of York says he regrets his handling of the case, with a spokesperson saying he acknowledges this could have been handled differently. Absolutely, it could have been handled differently. And regretting the handling of the case is, there's the thing here is there's a lot of people calling for more than just saying you regret this and things could be handled differently, because this is such a serious case. We just had many safeguarding scandals in the Church of England the John Smythe safeguarding scandal, the Mike Pilavachi safeguarding scandal. The Church of England's been rocked at the moment with these huge scandals, and now this is another one where a parish priest was allowed to stay. Forget about the area dean thing. He was allowed to stay in his position. And as I said in my last video, I can understand the legalities around this. It would have been hard. In 2011, we had something called common tenure come in, which changed what was previously held by incumbents called freehold. And freehold really meant you could stay in your position. But, as many people said, with the seriousness of the allegations against this man and what he was doing, that just get him out and face the consequences after and deal with those things. So there was, it was very difficult. But the whole thing here, and I think the whole thing with a lot more people now calling for the Archbishop of York to resign, is based on this allowing this David Tudor to be area dean and continue to renew that role, and also being made an honorary canon of the cathedral, which is a prestigious role. So the spokesperson added that all the risks around David Tudor were regularly reviewed, and that was the main focus. So by saying this, the risk around him were regularly reviewed because they knew that there was a risk of this guy, and that was the main focus of regularly reviewing these risks. And if you're regularly reviewing risks because you're acknowledging in that this priest is a risk, why is he still in that role? Rachel Ford, who told the investigation she was groomed by Tudor as a child, said the renewal of his contract as area dean was an insult to all his victims. And I can't imagine how these victims would feel with this fresh news coming out. Miss Ford added that if responsibility for that lay with Mr. Cottrell, it strengthened her feeling that he should resign. So all these people calling for the Archbishop of York to resign, quite rightly. But listen to the victims of this priest or former priest who did these horrendous things, and listen to them and how they feel with all of this new information coming out. The BBC investigation showed Mr. Cottrell was briefed in his first week as Bishop of Chelmsford about serious safeguarding issues surrounding Tudor. So in his first week, so that's how serious it is, in his first week he's briefed about this. So he knew, as soon as he started in 2010, he knew about David Tudor. These include that Tudor was convicted of indecently assaulting 3 underage girls and was jailed for 6 months in 1988. Although the conviction was quashed on technical grounds, Mr. Cottrell would have known Tudor served a 5-year ban for ministry. So I said this before in the previous video, it shouldn't have never got to Stephen Cottrell's desk, that he should have received a life ban back then and never been able to serve as a parish priest. That happened. I don't think that would happen today, but it happened then, and that was a huge mistake. By 2012, Mr. Cottrell also knew that Tudor had paid £10,000 settlement to a woman who said she was sexually abused by him from the age of 11. Let that sink in, 11 years old. In 2018, the Church of England issued an apology and a 6-figure payout to another alleged victim. A 6-figure payout the Church of England had to pay out in 2018. Yet the priests were suspended only in 2019 when a police investigation was launched after another woman came forward alleging that Tudor had abused her in the 1980s. So we get to 2019 until he's finally caught not by the Church of England, by the police, and they use the police investigation and into what he's done, and then are finally able to get him out. Like I said before, there were some technicalities and things, and there's some legal stuff that would have made it more difficult. But that's what the Archbishop of York was saying. We was just waiting for something to be able to get him out of his role. But they knew that he was a danger, as they said. The spokesperson said they knew that they were monitoring him, and yet they allowed him to continue in this role as area dean, renewing twice that role. When first responding to the BBC's investigation, the Archbishop of York said he was deeply sorry that they were not able to take action earlier, insisting he had acted at the first opportunity that was legally available to him, as I just said. Mr. Cottrell also said he had been faced with a horrible and intolerable situation, and that it was awful to live with and to manage. Now, as many people have said, again, quite rightly, horrible and intolerable for you. What about the victims here? And it's not just the abuse that they had to suffer at the time, but actually the continuation of that and the trauma that they've had to live through because of what this man has done to them. And so to say it was awful to live with and manage, well, I think it's awful to live with for those poor young women to have to live their lives knowing that they were abused by a person who then was allowed to stay in the Church of England for so long, and not just that, but to be able to carry on as in a kind of prestigious position as area dean, and then to be made canon of the cathedral. When Mr. Cottrell became bishop in 2010, Tudor was into the second year of a 5-year term as an area dean, a role overseeing 12 parishes in Essex. So there's the first opportunity. Right, if you can't get him out that role then and there, then get him out at that first opportunity when the 5-year tenure came up. But the article says his appointment to that post under a different bishop happened despite him working under a safeguarding agreement that barred him from being alone with children and entering into schools. It's just astonishing here. So again, this is not just Stephen Cottrell. The previous bishop would have known of these serious offences, but allowed him to become area dean. That should never have happened. So yes, Stephen Cottrell got landed with this, but he should have dealt with it. So he's area dean despite him and his parish priest working under a safeguarding agreement. It's an agreement. An agreement is between two bodies or two people. So this is an agreement that he's agreed to with the diocese that barred him from being alone with children and entering into schools. This is crazy. This is what the Bishop of Newcastle was saying, and I commented on my last video that if you can't do your role as a parish priest, and it is going into schools, taking assemblies, schools coming into the church, and doing those harvest and Christmas and Easter services and things like that, because you are barred from being around children, you are not fully doing your role, and that's a capability measure. And the question that she posed is, why was he not got out for that? He's not capable of fulfilling all his duties because of this safeguarding agreement. Says the title was renewed twice under Mr. Cottrell in 2013 and 2018, and he lost the title only when the term of office expired in 2020. It was not taken from him. It should have been taken from him. A spokesperson for the Archbishop says he accepts responsibility for David Tudor remaining as area dean. Then I'm sorry, but if you accept responsibility as him remaining or as area dean, then he must do the right thing here. No one advised him that David Tudor should not continue as an area dean, said the Archbishop's office. Now, this comes up again and again. I saw on X, somebody said, with the legal complications of getting him out as a parish priest, which again, I acknowledge. I understand that. But Stephen Cottrell's going to his legal team, and someone said on X, it feels like he's pushing the legal team under the bus here. It's their responsibility, not me. And asking, how do they feel? How does that legal team feel? Now, he's saying no one advised him, again, would have been the legal team, that David Tudor should not continue as an area dean. You're a bishop of a diocese. You have to accept that responsibility. You're in charge of that diocese. And remember, we've got 42 dioceses in the Church of England, and the bishop, they're independent of each other as well, and the bishop is the head honcho. That's the responsibility you have. Do we have an archbishop here? It's a question that is led just by advisors, and whatever the advisors tell him to do, that's what he does, because that's what it's sounding like in all of this case, that he just needs to be advised on every point. So no one advised him. How could no one not advise him that he shouldn't be a dean? He should just know. He should just know. I can't imagine the other vicars in that deanery, because remember, like I said, he is the chair of the deanery synod. They would have known about him. In fact, one of the priests has come out, and I saw her on Newsnight speaking about this, and it was the one who actually brought this up about this case. It'd be incredibly difficult to work with him as area dean, knowing what he would have done. I wouldn't. If it was in my deanery, I wouldn't go to meetings. I would refuse. I would refuse point blank. And I would write to my bishop and archdeacon and say, I'm sorry, but with this person and entering into a safeguarding agreement, so it's known and it's stated that he can't go into schools or be alone with children. I cannot accept him as my area dean, and we would need to find an alternative way to work. And I don't know about the other incumbents at the time, what views they had and how they felt and things like this, but like I said, one parish priest who's now retired was the one that reported it, so I guess they weren't happy. So it's not a case that no one advised. Even if no one did advise him, he should, as the bishop, say this is not acceptable at all. This person cannot be area dean. The Bishop of Newcastle, Helen Ann Hartley, posted on X that Mr. Cottrell's expressions of regret did not square with his actions. And she says in this text, I do not know how you can find a situation horrible and intolerable and then square it with what it is reported here, which is the article I'm going through. Answer is, you can't and be expected to be a credible voice as the leadership of the Church of England. And understand this, on January the 7th, the Archbishop of York will step into the shoes of the Archbishop of Canterbury and lead the Church of England. He will be at York Minster on Christmas Day delivering the Christmas sermon. There's parish priests at the moment. We're just a couple of days away from Christmas. We've got many services coming up. We'll be going into their churches, and this is in the news, and it reflects on the local church as well. It feels really awful and uncomfortable, and some parish priests will not be able to, they will feel a weight of this upon them. And the Bishop of Newcastle is absolutely right. How do you square? We can't square this situation with what I'm going through in this article is absolutely awful. Another of Tudor's victims, who does not want to be identified, said she was shocked and disappointed to hear his tenure as area dean was twice renewed during Mr. Cottrell's time as Bishop of Chelmsford. That these are not the actions of a bishop dealing with a situation that was intolerable to him. In fact, quite the opposite. I call on him to do the honourable thing for the sake of the church and resign, she says. And, again, listen to the victims here. In 2015, under Mr. Cottrell, Tudor was made an honorary canon of Chelmsford Cathedral. And so, the honorary canon thing is a recognition of local vicars' work over a period of time for the church, for the diocese, for the church, locally, and saying, we recognise what you've done. Here's a reward, as it were. You are now made a canon. In the Diocese of Chelmsford, they changed the policies that every area dean was automatically made a canon. Just because it can be made automatic doesn't take the fact that he should have not been made a canon, that they should have taken it away. Remember John Bercow just comes to mind. He was every Speaker of the House is made a Lord, and I don't think John Bercow, after his actions in the House of Commons, was ever made a Lord. It was what happened. It wasn't like in policy. It's just what happened. It was tradition, and they said, no, we're not going to do that for you because of those things that happen. So even though it's a matter of policy, he should have said, no, you're not going to be made an honorary canon because this is not right. And if he's not made an honorary canon, then he shouldn't be renewed as area dean as well. The Archbishop's office insisted it happened because of a change in the church's policy during Mr. Cottrell's time as Bishop of Chelmsford, meaning area deans were automatically made honorary canons. But as I just said, it could have stopped it. Why didn't he stop it? They said it was not a promotion and it's not a personal award. It is a personal reward. You know, that's also, all those people are being made honorary canons. And I know in my diocese in Oxford, they are having their service in February. You know, to say we're not recognising, it's not a personal reward for the recognition of your work. You know, what is it then? Does anyone get it? I'm sure they see it as a personal reward for the work that they've done, and good work in many cases. However, a social media post from Tudor's Canvey Island parish in July 2015 suggests it was seen there as a reward. Tudor's hard work, determination and commitment to this place have been recognised by the diocese, and this new position in the church is very well deserved, it said. So people will see it as an award. They can say it's not seen as an award. I think most people in the church will see being made a canon as an award. I can't see it otherwise. The BBC has also seen evidence in leaked minutes from internal church meetings in 2018 and 2019 that Tudor's titles of area dean and honorary canon were discussed, and there had been a suggestion Mr. Cottrell could immediately have taken them away. So we get to a situation that he's still made area dean and it's renewed. He's made a canon, and they're discussing years later, should we take them away? In October 2018, a meeting at Church House, the London headquarters of the Church of England, heard that Chelmsford Diocese took the view that if Tudor can be a parish priest, he can undertake other roles. What's the logic here? I can't, for the life of me, just like, he shouldn't be a parish priest at all for what has been alleged to have done. And also to have these other roles. You can't say, if he's in that role, he can do these other roles as well. It just is. A bishop from another diocese said the Bishop of Chelmsford could remove DT's David Tudor's canon and area dean title straight away. So, you know, don't just say it's policy and all this stuff when another diocese says, yes, you can. There is a mechanism to make sure that this happens, that you can remove them straight away. And I'm sure there is absolutely, not saying because he's a parish priest he should stay in. It's a mess. And again, he's been made Archbishop of York, and following on from all this, and then now it's all come out. It's just, what are people, you know, it's on the news. It's on all the major channels. This is from the BBC. The public are reading this. What do they think of us as the Church of England? Because this national church stuff, this stuff that just happens, feels like so many miles away from where we are in the local church, affects the local church, and it's not good. But in a follow-up discussion in November 2018, Chelmsford Diocese advised it would not be appropriate because of the difficulty of removing those titles without explaining why. Just explain. Explain. Is it, you know, if you can't explain because of the technicalities and the legal implications and all those, just take the safeguarding agreement, a thing that was agreed and said, you've agreed not to go into schools. You've agreed not to be alone with children. You should not be area dean, and you should not have this honorary canon title. You've agreed a safeguarding agreement which agrees that you are not safe to be around children. There's no difficulty here. There's no difficulty here. And now the advice comes in. So there's advice being taken. It's advised that it would not be appropriate to take them away, but there was an advice that, it's just all over the place. And I'm glad the BBC is investigating this. We asked Mr. Cottrell's office why he had not followed the suggestion to remove tutors' titles. We were told it would not be appropriate to comment on any notes or discussions from a core group process which are confidential. Then don't comment on them. Don't comment on them. Make a comment outside of them. Make a comment which you can make. Don't. It feels like it's hiding behind this. This. Not many videos. I sit down and I go through the article, and I take the screenshots and stuff, and I know what's going to come up, but this is really just annoying me now, because it's like and then you imagine if it annoys me, it just winds me up, because one thing, and we can't take them away. Another bishop saying you can take them away, and why was he ever made area dean and renewed it after, when you knew that he signed the safeguarding agreement, which is something you could have used, in my view? Then it's just a mess. And if I'm annoyed, how do those victims feel? How do those victims feel with all of this? I couldn't imagine them reading this article and hearing this news. The investigation also highlighted the significant role played by the former Archbishop of Canterbury, George Carey, in the case. We revealed Lord Carey had agreed to Tudor's return to priesthood after being suspended in 1989, and had also agreed to have Tudor's name removed from the list of clergy that had faced disciplinary action. He had also advocated for the priest. But after the BBC put this information to the former Archbishop of Canterbury, he wrote to give up his permission to officiate, ending more than 65 years of ministry in the Church of England. Lord Carey made the announcement on Tuesday. Last week, that is. In October 2024, Tudor admitted sexual misconduct and was sacked from the Church of England. At no point has he responded to the BBC's attempts to speak to him. So the former Archbishop of Canterbury has resigned his permission to officiate. He's never going to serve in the church again, never going to preach a sermon, never going to take a communion service after the BBC had approached him. What says a lot, right? It says a lot. And yet the Archbishop of York is all he's doing is apologising that he got things wrong. Sorry, I regret it, but my hands were tied, or somebody didn't advise me all this. It doesn't seem credible. And the church at the moment, like I said, with all of these safeguarding scandals that have been going on, and like I will say again, I believe that the safeguarding of the local churches is really good, and the systems we've got in place now are very good. This is all historical, when it was all very different. But in this case, this guy, David Tudor, was renewed his license as area dean twice, was made an honorary canon, and it didn't need to happen. Not my words, the words of another diocesan bishop who said, yes, he could have taken them away, and why didn't he? The Archbishop of York, as I said, is going to take over, looking after running, being the head of the Church of England, as it were, once the Archbishop of Canterbury steps down, and is going to be there in that position until the next Archbishop of Canterbury steps in, whoever would want that post. Going to deliver a Christmas sermon. I can't imagine those people sitting there reading these stories, because like I said, it's not like in a local paper or on page like 28. This is on national headlines, on the national news. It's on international news as well. And what credibility does he feel? Because people reading these and listening to those news broadcasts as well will look at what he's going to say on Christmas Day, and then think about his actions as well. And the question is, really, with so many people calling for his resignation, and that petition, as like I said, it start to shoot up again because of this article and the stuff coming out, how can he really stay in his post? And should he do the right thing and resign?